Welcome to another exciting episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. My guest today is a problem solver, transformational coach, mechanical engineer, data analyst, and he's also known as the Flowstate engineer. Please welcome in the one, the only Anthony. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Anthony, why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about your story, and then we'll get into what exactly it is you're doing these days, and the real great stuff you're doing.
So my story, I was diagnosed with bipolar when I was about 24, following the end of a job. I landed in the psychiatric hospital. I was put on schizophrenia medication because I was manic and I had delusional thoughts, really high energy, excessive. And after coming out of the hospital, I actually landed into depression because I was going to leave the country that I was in. I had no plan. I had just quit my job. I didn't have friends wherever I was going. And now I was taking this schizophrenia medication. And it's taken me quite a while to make my own way into better mental well-being. But I'm happy to say that 8 years later, I'm now almost a year medication free. And after a 6-year journey of reducing my medication progressively because of all the inner work and the learnings that I've had and the lifestyle changes that I've made, all naturally.
That's awesome, man. I mean, just thinking of all the medication is just like the side effects of things. Like me and my mother-in-law were watching TV the other day, and every time those commercials come on, those big colorful commercials, oh, exciting, here comes a new medication. You look for the little catch lines of, oh, some side effects included. And we're laughing as we're comparing them because we're like, oh, well, this one goes with the other one. So I was like, I'm not a big fan of medications. I don't agree with them. I think that sometimes we got to question what they're putting in these things, because if you look at some of the side effects, it's like, wait, I'm trying to solve this problem, but now you have this one to solve that problem. And that adds a whole nother set of side effects on it. So that's awesome to hear, man. Like, how did you do it though? Did you just kind of just ease yourself off? Because I know with some of those medications, like when they're considered controls, you got to be really careful how you interact and take yourself off those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I am not a medical professional. I want to highlight that.
Yeah,
I'm an
definitely.
engineer and I'm entirely self-taught. Make sure that like whatever you get out of this is educational purposes only, inspiration only, and always check with medical professionals. And yeah, it wasn't so simple as kind of forcing yourself to wean off of medication. It actually, we can think of medication as like a crutch. When we have a broken leg and one of our legs is not working, we need a crutch in order to actually do the job of that leg until the leg heals enough so that it can then function normally again. I think mental illness or struggles that have anything to do with the mind are a little more complex because they're so interrelated with physical and environmental and invisible things that are psychological, traumatic, spiritual causes. So it's been a big learning journey for one, a lot of tools that I had to get. If I had to give the highlights, I would put it in 3 pillars. One pillar was finding a strong sense of purpose in my life with clear goals and a clear vision of where I want to go. A second pillar was discovering the neuroscience behind flow states, and that helped explain so much for me and also improve my performance in every aspect. So all the things related to lifestyle. And the third thing was actually working on the unconscious patterns through deep inner emotional trauma work. These were the 3 major pillars, I would say. And to kind of wrap around to that, I would also add spirituality as a general overall boosting pillar. Maybe there's 4 pillars.
Spirituality seems to be coming up lately a lot of times for a lot of different people. And I think, a lot of people are just like, oh, that's hogwash or whatever. But it works. Like, look at where you're at now. You got to where you're at because you put in all the work and did the research. And, what was that one defining moment, though, where you were like, you know what, I'm done with these drugs. I can't do this anymore. I need to start changing my life.
I think it's when I discovered about ADHD.
Yeah.
So I was diagnosed bipolar originally, but I didn't even know that ADHD existed. I was so locked into this. Am I bipolar? Am I not bipolar?
Yeah.
What happened to me? And it was probably, if my whole journey was 8 years since then, it was probably only 2 years ago or so that I discovered about ADHD and I started learning about ADHD and I was like, oh my God, this is me. Like this explains my childhood procrastination. This explains my distractions. This explains why I'm always so into starting new projects and taking risks and traveling around and going to festivals and taking drugs and all these things like chasing dopamine. And for me, when I understood about ADHD plus complex PTSD being a possible root cause of triggers for psychotic episodes, for me, that was it. It was like my new story is that the bipolar was a misdiagnosis. And actually, my real identity, well, what I relate to, because I don't identify with
Yeah,
ADHD, but I
exactly.
relate to it
Very good point.
is ADHD. Plus, I had some trauma. And since I've learned about the trauma and worked on it and released emotions and had some tears that cried, I was like, okay, maybe if this was the root cause, then I don't really need medication anymore. At least I'm always going to have a fear that tomorrow I end up psychotic again. That fear, maybe it will go away in 50 years. I don't know. But at least it gave me enough confidence in the last 2 years to go, you know what? I talked to the psychiatrist about it. Either I'm going to switch medication towards ADHD meds, or actually, what the solution that he proposed was, yeah, just go off of medication and see where you land on that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though that they said that to you because I think that's the biggest fear with most people with therapy is like oh I don't want to get put on pills. It's like but like you said, you're just trying to figure out what the diagnosis was. You got misdiagnosed. So what do you know what year it was? Like was it like the 90s when you got diagnosed? Because I know mental health early on was terrible. Like they didn't know a lot that they know now, and I
Yeah,
think that's the
for
hard part
sure.
about it is like when they were started diagnosing people, they started saying shell shock can only happen to military people. Then it was PTSD, and everything starts evolving as the more information we learn. So like early on diagnoses are tough, and when people say they got misdiagnosed, people want to go start the party, go find the monster because they misdiagnosed. No, it's because they did what they had, what information they had then. It's like they may have not known everything that they know now, like you discovered. You're like, hey, whoa, hey, now this is more like what I'm dealing with versus what they were telling me.
Yeah, exactly. No, it wasn't the 90s. I was actually born in 92,
Oh, okay,
but
okay. So you're
I
a
was
baby. All right, okay.
a little baby. Yeah, yeah. But I've gone deep in my inner work
Oh,
journey.
definitely, man. I'm impressed. Let me tell you, I've seen some of your story on your Facebook page. I have to say nothing but impressed by what you've done, man. Where you've gone and where you've been. Pure power of, human will, man. You just didn't give up. You're like, you know what? I'm gonna dig deep in this thing and I'm not gonna let it. And I love when you said I don't identify my diagnosis, which is great because I think a lot of people take it and run with that. Well, I'm depressed now, so I can't do anything. It's like it's just the symptoms
Yeah.
that you deal with. They're giving it a name because this is what it falls under, but that doesn't identify you as a person.
Yeah, and that's actually where spirituality actually helps. Because if we identify with the mind, the body, the human being, then that entity is subject to illness and suffering. But if we can connect to a part of us that is eternal, for example, a soul or consciousness, or whatever is the observer we can call awareness, if we really truly identify with that. And we have experiences that tell us that you could be so much more than what you believe as a mind and body. That really helps kind of detach from these self-fulfilling prophecies, because if we tell ourselves that we're ill, we're broken, we're something, something, it's only going to amplify that loop.
I think you're right, man. I think you're hitting all good points there too, because the mind is a very powerful thing. You know how they say when they use 10% of it, man. Just think if you can unlock the potential of more of it, and what the things you could do with it from there. It's crazy because all these people out there are always like, I'm depressed, and it's like that's cool that you want to talk about your symptoms and things like that. But I think like what you said to me helps you unlock your another level of thinking, basically, because now you're open to the idea of something being there that you physically can't see. Because that's always been the big argument is God real? And like, well, CNN actually did a really good documentary about Jesus himself, and he was going around, and it was like it's hard to say no that this person didn't exist or somebody existed, and because there's all these different events that led up to where he was, like, hey, there's a person here fitting this description there. And it changed my mindset at that because I wasn't a big religious person until I accepted faith last year. because it was always the way it was given to you was just like it was like force fed to like, oh, everything you do is so bad. This higher power is going to judge you for everything you do, and it's nothing like that. And it's a lot of misinformation that floats around when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think no matter what you believe in, whether it's one God, no God, multiple gods, at the end of the day, there is an experience. We can all agree that there are things here.
Hmm.
We can move. We have some sort of control. We see things. We agree on what we see, and we have an experience. Feelings move through us, energy fluctuates. And whatever you want to call that, or whatever you want to call the reason for that, that is something way beyond the individual. And so that is no matter what kind of, I'm not very into boxing people in, and I've been exposed to quite a lot of religions and spiritual teachings. So I don't preach anything and I don't tell people what to believe in, but I do help people connect to whatever it is that they believe in to a depth that makes it make sense for them. And, we can call it nature. And even if you don't
Yeah,
believe in God,
a
there
lot
is
of people are
nature.
ground too. You know what I mean, Anthony?
Yeah.
They tend to go outside. Like, it's weird when people tell you it's like go outside with your socks off and go feel the earth, or hug a tree. It's funny because a lot of people like to call tree hugging hippies. Oh, that whole phrase that came out, but it makes sense. So you're grounding yourself. Like breath work is a big thing too. All you're using is your own body to fix a lot of these problems and reset yourself and things like that too. And I think that people need to understand there's other things out there. Like, talk therapy is great for some people, but there's so many different things that people are doing, like yourself and other people I've met on this show that are just doing really interesting things out there. It's like, why not try it? What do you have to lose at this point? You only live one life. What are you going to say? Okay, well, it didn't work for me. Okay, cool. You tried it. You didn't judge it. You just went for it, and just gave it a shot. But people are so afraid these days because they're like, I think it's the fear of failure is what it is. People get so scared. They're afraid it's not going to work. Oh, there's nothing else to do. It's like, you can't give up, man. Like, think of all these other people that did things. If they would have given up, we wouldn't have half the things we have now. We wouldn't have the light bulb. We'd have all these other kind of things, that people invented, and the things that you're doing and other people are doing is quite inspirational because it's like you're proving that, okay, well, I don't need medication. This is how I did it. Now, I'm not telling you this is the proven track of, you're not trying to come from an expert. You're like, hey, listen, this is what I did. How about you could try this and see what happens?
Yeah, exactly. Because there are so many tools, as you say. I mean, I've been a big meditator for a long time. And probably 30 years ago, science and medicine was dismissing meditation like something that only monks in the
Hmm.
Himalayas would be doing. But now it's actually being integrated into the medical system. There are actually some pioneers out there with masters and PhDs who are doing the research and showing through brain scans that, look, we meditate, we're reducing anxiety by this percent, we're actually increasing the brain resilience, we're growing new cells faster, and we're feeling better. Like that's real stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I agree. So let's get into what you're doing now. So tell everybody what is you're currently working on now, because I know you have some kind of a program or something you're working with. I know you're a well-being coach. What's it like? Say somebody signs up for a session with you. Give them an idea of what it would be like if they come and meet with you, so they get an idea of what they're kind of get a little taste of. You know what I mean? You want to get them a little enticed, to let them know, hey, listen, this is what it would be like. So in case any other preconceived notions, they couldn't be like, well, Anthony's going to be like this. You don't know what Anthony's going to be like. Anthony's about to tell you right now what it's like to be in one of those sessions.
Yeah, so the first thing that I do with anybody that comes into my world, and this doesn't have to be linked to a session either. One can do this without getting a coaching session, but rather get this as a side, and if they want to do it on their own. But I always start with an evaluation process. It's a self-evaluation, and it's a questionnaire that covers, I think, about 20, 30, somewhere in that range, different characteristics. So some of it is self-belief, mindset, motivation. Some of it is lifestyle habits like sleep, exercise, nutrition, mindfulness, social life, head clutter, how many stuff you have going on in your head, how many big projects and how many small little to-do list items that are all just causing so much chaos in the head. All of this, plus a whole bunch of productivity skills like focus and single tasking and organizing, setting goals, environmental factors. All of this I look at and we score them from 1 to 10. Based on that, I call this the flow profile. And it's basically the roadmap which leads you to the awareness of what skills are you strong on and what skills could be improved. And most importantly, how do they compare side by side? Because, for example, if you're a 10 out of 10 on motivation and a 7 out of 10 on sleep, but you're a 1 out of 10 on goal setting, then it's an obvious choice. We're going to work on goal setting first. But if it's a little closer, so it's not only each individual score, but also how they compare to each other, which determines how we're going to co-create the roadmap that's going to lead to the most amount of results in the least amount of time.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think that's awesome. I think how you're doing it, it makes sense. So you're trying to identify weaknesses because if you ask people what's your weakness, it's like most people couldn't answer that question. Honestly, man, they'd look at you like, well, I don't know, and then you come up with some generic answer. But this one, it sounds like you've already got the system. So how long did it take for you to develop this whole system? Was this just because, it obviously took a little time because you have it well thought through. The way you just explained it to us is that you breaking them down and
Yeah.
categorizing things. So was it a lot of trial and error when you were doing it in the beginning?
Prior to discovering the neuroscience of flow and going deeper into the coaching journey, it was pretty much intuitive. I was operating from a wheel of life perspective, which was more like broad categories: spirituality, finances, exercise, whatever. But since I've had the flow state training and a different model to see high performance through, I was able to then create this model over time. So I trained in flow states in 2021. So it's probably taken me 4 years to develop this model. And most of it was in the first couple of years, but there are some incremental improvements that have been made in the last few years. And it's just getting better and better.
That's awesome, though. I mean, you're constantly evolving it where it needs to be. You're constantly ticking with it, trying to make sure it works. I mean, you put the work in though. 4 years in neuroscience study, man. I love neuroscience. Like what I've learned, a little bit of it. Me and other guests were talking about negative self talk, and she was saying that they discovered there's another part of your brain that causes all that kind of stuff, and it was interesting. But it wasn't like when you talked to her, it wasn't like you were lost in the whole conversation of neuroscience because I knew nothing about it until then, and we got in this deep conversation. It was so fascinating because you start learning all these new things about, what you didn't know. So that's cool, man. Are you constantly looking for new things to add and things like that too? You've got to be like looking to try and stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and what's incredible is there is so much out there now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are scales and metrics for all sorts of evaluations dealing with flow. Flow is one of those little bit transcendental states that has overlap with spirituality and near death experiences or peak experiences that are just a not ordinary state of consciousness that we're in. And there's actually a scale to measure that. There's there's a way to measure everything. And I've been over the years collecting all of the different factors that contribute to one's performance and well-being and putting it together basically.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question though. When you started this whole thing and you were explaining it to people that, were on medication, like, hey, listen, you don't need that medication possibly. I may be able to help you. Did they look at you kind of like you was like, what? Huh? Because you know how it is when people get so like stuck in a system or they're stuck in like a routine of oh, I got to take this pill or else my life's going to come melting down. You know what I mean? Those type of people. Did you run into a lot of like pushback from people like that?
Yeah, so first of all, I don't tell people and I don't offer to people help for coming off of
Okay.
medication. I mean, that's a journey that one has to do with their healthcare practitioners.
Okay. Okay.
But like from a legal perspective, I am a personal development
Oh,
coach.
okay. I
But
got you now. Okay.
that personal development could give you the confidence and the knowledge and the tools that you need in order to then take that journey of coming off medication with the medical professionals. So because I never tell people that, I
Do you
just
ever
share my story.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask you that question. Do you share your story with them?
Yeah, the other thing that I've been sharing for a long time is we don't know everything that there is to know about mental health. And there are factors that are inseparable. we cannot know if the problem comes from within our mind and body or within our environment until we start separating those two things out and start learning skills that we can learn in order to kind of maximize the performance in any environment and thus separate the impacts of environment factors.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. So let me ask you this though, with social media being introduced, okay, so we all know how a lot of misinformation floats around. Is there some stuff you see that just like jumps out at you and goes like, y'all need to stop. That's just horrible. Because I know you probably see a lot of it and you're just like, okay, ill, it's like ick. It's kind of gives you that kind of like ick feeling, like you're like, that's not right, because, I know when it comes to social media, there's so much information out there with the internet being introduced in the 90s, now you have all this at your fingertips. I think it's a good and evil balance, honestly, you think about it, because a lot of people get a lot of misinformation. So have you seen some things that just like, you're like, no, stop listening to those?
Yeah, I used to follow a lot of generic motivational stuff. And some of it is great if it works for you, particularly if it's a well-known practitioner who can really give the nuance. I think one of the things to be very wary of are messages in a short format. And not because of the short format itself, although that's its own conversation, but because short formats just don't cover enough depth to really give you the nuance that you need. For example, people might be preaching discipline, but we don't know if somebody preaching discipline to someone is actually going to trigger guilt and shame in someone for struggling to be able to actually do the thing they want to be disciplined at. So that's one thing. There's a lot of toxic positivity as well. Sometimes if you're trying to trick your brain with positivity that you feel inside, either on a soul level or on a gut level, like, I don't believe this, it's because there is a built-in bullshit detection mechanism inside of you, and you're not meant to believe it because that is a factor too. So you need to really be met where you're at with either a practitioner or some education tools and systems that are holistic, that have an understanding of trauma, that are aligned with you on your spiritual views or incorporated in some way, and that are in the area that you're interested in, ideally as close to your situation as possible. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of misinformation out there, and it's really tricky because of the nuance. That's a big detail.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's just there's so much floating around, and when COVID hit, it just started overflowing amounts of stuff just coming out because nobody knew anything, and everybody had no idea what's going on with those situations as an example, and then you see these people come on and they're like, well, depression isn't real. It's this and this. It's like, stop. Like, stop telling people this. And not enough people go and check and see what their background is. Like what do you, how okay, so cool. You're telling me about depression. What is your background in that? Do you have any kind of training? Have you done any kind of research? These kind of things I think people don't ask enough questions about. And advocating for their own mental health care too. And it's the same thing with your doctors too. Advocate for yourself. Like, don't be afraid to tell people no. Like, like, hey, listen, I don't like this, or do research into what they're telling you to put in your systems, because I think a lot of people, they blindly trust people, but they don't look into what it is. And then they're like, oh, well, it's like we were talking about the side effect thing, like if you look at some of these side effects, it's like, whoa, hold on, wait a minute, I'm about to put this in my body and it's telling me that it's going to cause possibly more problems than I already have now. And I know with the psych meds, it gets really interesting with the side effects alone, like, and I know from a few people I talked to, they said that some of them make them feel like zombies because, they were putting too much in their system, and it's I think it's what scares people the most, is that they're like I said, that seems to be the ongoing phrase that happens when you ever mention anything about therapy of any sort or any kind of mental health. Oh, well, I don't want to be put on pills. Oh, I don't want them to tell my boss. They can't tell your
Yeah.
boss. There's a confidentiality thing, and it's kind of fear mongering in a little bit, because it's like people are so scared of it because they're afraid they're going to get put on a pill. But it's like, what are you experiencing that because those people that are put on medication, a lot of times it's to help stabilize them for some of that stuff, depending on what it is, or they go and take the route you did and start looking at how to improve themselves to better handle these symptoms they're dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have been in that zombie state myself. And
Yeah.
it's actually a big part of the reason why I did my own investigation. Like, I was not gonna live my life like this my whole life. Or at least if I had to, then I would be choosing to, because there's not a better alternative. I.e., it's really true that I need this in order to live a higher quality life. And B, it's really true that if I uh, break free from it, my quality of life is going to go worse. Until digging that deep, you can't necessarily conclude. And one of the sad things today is that people have lost a lot of empowerment and trust in themselves because of the system, where actually a big part of the causes of mental problems are actually systemic. They are societal. They are the stress of day to day life. They are the pollution. They are the toxins. They are the disconnection from nature and deep relationships and community. All these things you can improve either in parallel to or after or before taking pills. So there's many, many ways that you can go about the journey.
Yeah, no, I agree. And a lot of people are overworked and they're burnt out and all those other things keep playing factor. And like you said, you're when you're checking people to see where they're at, their sleep score, which I think sleep is a very overlooked one too. A lot of people don't get enough sleep, and then it's the buildup over time is, and then you just start developing these problems where you start seeing some things possibly because you're not sleeping enough. And then your brain is playing tricks on you at the same time. And I think people overlook, what they're eating to their diet as well, too. A lot of the stuff they put in, all this other stuff, if they really start reading labels, man, it'll scare you. Some of those labels you're reading, like you read some of the stuff, you're like, holy crap, dude, I'm putting this in my system. And like you can't read and understand some of the things in there. It's kind of like, yeah, maybe it's a good thing probably not to eat that. And think about it, like sodas are so addictive too. Like sugar's really addictive for people as well. Like if you look at these bottles of soda, like Mountain Dew used to have like 50 grams of sugar, some around there. But now if you look at a bottle of it, it's like 72 grams of sugar. It's like, holy crap, dude. We have diabetes going on and, obesity and other things, but you're adding more sugar into these things to make them more addictive. And then you're gonna be like, whoa, I didn't know anything about it. Oh crap, you knew exactly what you're doing. And it's crazy because not enough people are reading these labels or not even advocating for themselves and just saying, no, I don't want this. Because we live in we want it now kind of society, think about it. Everything that we have is a lot more popular places like McDonald's. What's a good thing with McDonald's? You can have that food within seconds, but we don't think about what we're putting in and how that affects our state of mind, though, because when you start putting all that crap in, then it starts causing you have an alter your state of mind, and people don't think about it. Like, the guy that did that 30-day documentary about how he ate McDonald's for 30 days, if you watch him, just watch his mental health just start deteriorating. He's just like, oh, I don't want to get up. I feel sluggish. I'm feeling nasty. You know what I mean? Like you could just see this poor guy struggling to make it to the end of this thing, and his health alone was getting affected. But, I don't think he did. Nobody really looked at the aspects of what his state of mind was by the end of that.
Yeah, absolutely. The food industry is yeah, I'm gonna say a part of the problem. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when people put profits over health, that's not a sign of a healthy society. Of course, we can argue that everything has its space, and so long as you don't overindulge in something, uh, too much, too frequently, then it's fine. Your body can handle it, but it's not ideal. And the problem as well is that it's more overwhelmingly available
Mm-hmm.
than it is the opposite. It's not the luxury to have a fast food, it's more the norm, and that's the difficult thing about these times in parts. It really takes a sort of rebellion and like running uphill in
Mm-hmm.
order to challenge that status quo. But the thing on the other end of the seesaw is it's your health, it's your lifespan. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but
the
nobody's
question.
thinking about that though. Remember, we're in such a go, go, go kind of world. It's like everybody's like, oh, well, it's convenient for me to get this there. And it's like, I fall prey to it sometimes too. But, it's like some of these people, man, like what he was mentioning in that documentary is that some of these people eat like 3 or 4 times a week. And it's just like, oh my God, do you look at how many calories you're putting in? And I think that it also does help because, then you have those influencers on social media. They're the ones that are just filling their heads with this. Oh, well, you You can't eat any of this stuff. You can't, like you said, if you, it's all about how much you're putting in, like, okay, well, don't overindulge. But these people are fear mongering it so bad that it's like they look at anything other than what their high priced items or things are. Oh, well, no, I have to have this. And it's scary to see how easy people are controlled by those kind of things. Do you ever run into people that have like I'm sure you run into people that have like body dysmorphia and things like that because the internet doesn't help because they see all these pretty people. Well, if I'm not pretty, then I feel like I'm not going to fit the status quo. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I used to struggle with obesity before I had my mental health problems. I had physical health problems. I had asthma when I was a kid before obesity. I had obesity, which was seriously limiting my athletic performance, my motivation to do anything physical, my social performance, my confidence, my dating life. And so when this became a huge problem for me, I started going deep into that area and lots of things improved. But it took a lot of conscious work. And all that to say, even at the time where I've had a healthy weight and I've maintained a healthy weight for several years, I was still dissatisfied with my body because I didn't have the six pack, because XYZ. And that's psychological problems,
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
People would tell me I'm attractive. People would tell me blah, blah, blah. But from within my own psyche, I didn't believe it because the beliefs about my own body, they formed when I was so young. And so they're so deeply ingrained and so attached to those developmental stages and emotions that it takes a lot of depth and layers in order to get to them and reprogram them.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. It takes a little while to do it, and people, then these people that send those like you said, the short forms of, listen, I can fix your problem in 72 hours. Yeah, that's probably a bad sign. If somebody says they can fix your issues in 24 hours or 72 hours, or oh, just after 2 sessions, well, you'll be feeling okay. Maybe you'll feel fine for a little bit, but then you go right back to it because you can't rush it. And I think that's the problem. Like I said, the people in this, we want it now. But when it comes to things like that, it takes time. Like trauma takes time to get over too. Like even I have problems. I have this problem where I can't forgive my mom when she abandoned me when I was 10. I still work on it every day, and it's hard though. I'm 40 years old, man. And she did it when I was 10. So for 30 years, it caused a ripple effect through my whole life until I finally started, talking to somebody about the problem. It's just that road hump that I can't get over. It's like that wall that never stops extending, no matter what it is. I just won't let go of it, kind of thing. And it's a constant work. It's not like, don't expect somebody to have the magic cure for you the next day. You know what I'm saying? Because like it's all about your state of mind as well, too. And don't feel defeated either if you don't get it figured out right away. It takes a little time. Anthony will tell you it took him a little time to get his situation figured out, but he's the proof right there that if you put your mind to it and you just don't give up on yourself, you can get somewhere. And like I said, man, you did great things on your own. You invested in yourself, worried about trying to get your own stuff. You did the research, and now you're helping other people out too. Now you've got a great system figured out. The way you're intaking people, I absolutely love it. How you're basically identifying what it is that their strong suits and their weaknesses are. That way you can help them better evolve and things like that too. So do you have anything new coming up that we need to know about? Anything you want to brag about for us? Look at you laughing.
I'm moving more into an asynchronous style of working with people
So do you want to,
to
real
create.
quick, do you want to explain what that is for everybody in case anybody
Yeah,
doesn't know what that means?
yeah. N- Not coordinated in time. So it doesn't have to be scheduled sessions. It's more about the quick text, the quick voice notes, quick
Oh, I like it. I
progress,
like it.
small steps.
You're adapting to that
Yeah.
we need it now kind of thing. I like it. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I have a course that is created, and that, of course, it depends when you listen to this podcast. So, it might have been existing for 10 years now. But as of now, yeah, it's being continuously improved and working with people on a hybrid basis to go through the course. Usually, there's already a lot of videos that are gonna be helpful for exactly the next step so that the next step can just take less than 15 minutes per week if they want. That's the idea, is to have the knowledge that is shared and the next steps and baby steps of progress every single week with the least amount of effort. So no need to coordinate on meetings, no need to coordinate time zones, no need to whatever, just quick message here and there and quick action steps, quick feedback. Yeah,
I
I'm
think it
more
works great
moving
though for those
towards that.
people that are those high profile people that are always like busy, a lot of like executives and things like that, the high level people that are always on the move. I think it's great because they can digest it when they got it 15 minutes. Hey, okay, listen, you got 15 minutes. It's only 15 minutes. You're not asking for 2 hours or anything else. You're like, hey, listen, you can spend 15 minutes while you're getting ready, listening to the video and watching it while you're getting ready. You know what I'm saying? Like that easy of a thing to do. So I love it. I think it's a great idea how you're adapting to the we want it now type of people. So in case you run into those type of people, like, well, I don't have time for this. Okay, well, cool. So I have this other idea I'm working on. And then you start pitching them the idea. This is what I'm doing. I have quick messages, 15 minutes every week, quick little text here and there. That's all it is. Just one text message and you're done. You don't have to spend a lot of time on it. And I love how you're constantly adapting to better fit the needs of other people, man. That's already a sign of a great thinker right there alone, man, because you're already ahead of the game going, hey, listen, how better can I evolve this idea to make it more sense, to adapt to other people that are always like, oh, I'm constantly on the go, and things like that too, which is great. With
Yeah,
that being said,
especially, yeah, I just want to make this
no, you
point.
could go ahead.
In the 21st century, we're now living in a world of AI.
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT is becoming the new Google. Like when people have a question or something, they're not going to Google it and look through like two or three links. They're going to ask ChatGPT and go, oh, okay, now this is exactly the response I needed. Plus, ChatGPT knows all of my history of everything I've ever asked it. And it's not just ChatGPT, it's any AI. And the technology is here to stay, and it's only going to get faster and better. So, the only time that we'll really need the human element is for that emotional human connection kind of release stuff and that physical connection and all this. But we have all of the informational solutions and material solutions at a click of a button. And actually, the edge of, no, that's not the expression I was looking for. The downside, the other side of the coin to this amazing world of information access is that we are so overwhelmed. We
Mm-hmm.
actually have way too many choices and way too many stuff to dig into. And that's where this kind of quick feedback mode of an offer comes in. It's like, I know you can get all the information you want tailored to you through AI. But if you want help picking what information to
Yeah,
tune into, this is where you ask a human who've already been through that information and been through the process and figured out what are the trade-offs between each so that you don't have to do the deep dive research about every option. You can just go, hey, what's your thoughts on this or that? Okay,
exactly.
next.
No, I agree. I think that's great. I think it's you had a really good point there though, and I think it's great. I love it, man. I think what you're doing is great. I think that the fact you're adapting on the go to fit the need and then, the whole thing with AI is like make it work for you. Don't let it work you basically essentially, make it work to your benefits like, because it's great. ChatGPT can help you with a lot of things and help you do things faster than most Google searches can. For us old school cats who use Google all the time. But
Yeah, same here.
we're at the part of the show where I like to ask you two questions. I ask all my guests the same questions. So the first one comes in credit to a friend of mine. She has a podcast called The Shit That Goes On in Our Heads. She asked me when we and her interviewed the first time we met, she said to me, and I'm going to ask you the same thing. Anthony, if your mental health had a song, what would that song be? That's a good question.
Happiness Amplified by Above and Beyond.
I love it. I love it, man. It's a great question because you get so many interesting responses, and a lot of people are like, damn, that's a really good question. All right. So
It's a
the
good
next
question.
question and the purpose of this whole podcast is if you could break the stigma about anything about mental health, I'm talking about anything you see on a daily basis, you're just like, please stop listening. This is what you need to know. What would you think that would be?
You are perfect as you are. You are not broken. Your mind, your body, your spirit, your emotions is responding in the best way that it judges to the situation and the environment that you're in, given the knowledge that you have. And from there, just anchor into that because it's applicable for every single moment of your life. You're great. You're doing great. You have infinite potential and it gets to be better.
I don't think I could say it any better myself. Anthony, thanks so much for being on the show today, man. Do me a favor. Can you go in and tell everybody where they can find you? What's the best way to reach you? You can plug your socials, you can plug your website, anything you want, man. Here's the time to sell it to them. Tell them where they can get you.
Yeah, the best way to connect with me is through my website, which is www.palacin. That's my last name, Palacin So UK website.
Awesome. Sounds great, guys. And guys, I will put that in the bio to the show and everything else. If you're listening at home, it'll be in the Spotify link or wherever else you're listening to. And Anthony, thank you so much again for coming, man. I enjoyed having this conversation. I think what you're doing is great. If you come up with anything else you'd like to come back and share with us, listen, you reach out. We'll figure it out. We'll get you back here, man.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Definitely. And guys, with that being said, we wrap up this episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. Guys, you know where to find me. I'm X all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify all the way down to Pandora Radio now. And as I always say, it costs nothing, absolutely nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind act you could do can save someone's life, or hell, you can even make their day. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety saying, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health today?